all of you. This is for class 11 subject biology chapter 9 biomolecules, and this is lecture number 7 of this chapter. Today we will discuss about factors affecting enzyme activity, classification and nomenclature of enzyme, and cofactors. So these are the factors which affect the activity of enzyme. These are temperature and pH, concentration of the substrate, and presence of inhibitor. So let's start how temperature and pH affect the enzyme activity. So enzymes show highest activity at optimum temperature and pH. There is a specific temperature and pH for each enzyme. Only at that temperature and pH that enzyme can work maximally, means at maximum efficiency. Okay, and that temperature or pH is called optimum temperature or optimum pH for that enzyme, right? So we can say at optimum temperature and pH, enzyme shows highest activity. Now activity declines below and above optimum value. If the temperature or pH is below that optimum temperature, then enzyme activity will decrease, and also if the temperature and pH is above that optimum value, then also activity of enzyme will decline, right? At low temperature, enzyme temporarily inactive, means low temperature means lower than optimum temperature. It can vary for different enzymes. Okay, just keep remember that low temperature meaning is different for different enzymes. Okay, it is regarding the optimum temperature. So at low temperature, enzyme temporarily inactive, but at high temperature enzymes destroy, because you know enzymes are made up of proteins, right? At high temperature these proteins get denatured. So proteins are denatured by heat. Denature means their structure will be destroyed. Okay, their bonds will be broken and structure will be destroyed. And that's why we can say enzyme will destroy and will not be able to perform any activity. So it happens at high temperature. Now you can understand it with the help of this graph. On one side this is temperature and this is enzyme activity. Now like here from the starting, enzyme activity is increasing with increasing the temperature. Okay, because this is lower temperature, lower than optimum temperature. Now at this point, activity of enzyme is maximum. As you can see here, activity of enzyme is maximum. Then after this point, again with increasing temperature, enzyme activity get decrease, right? So this is how temperature affect the enzyme activity. You can see it here also, like this is temperature in degree Celsius, 0 degree Celsius, 10 degree Celsius, 20 up to 70 degree Celsius, it is shown here. And this is enzyme activity. In starting, enzyme activity, when we start from 0 degree Celsius, enzyme activity is increasing with increasing temperature. Okay, but here this nearly you can say 39 degree Celsius is the optimum temperature for this enzyme activity. Okay, and after this, if we further increase the temperature, activity of enzyme decreases. Same thing happen with pH also. pH also affect the enzyme activity in same way. This is pH and this is enzyme activity. Here you can see. So this is pH up to 40. This is 2, 4, 6, 8 and up to 14. This pH is shown here. When in starting pH is increasing, enzyme activity is also increasing, and up to this value, means this is you can say pH 7. So for this enzyme you can say the optimum pH is 7. After this pH, if we further increase the pH, then enzyme activity get decrease, as you can see in the graph. Okay, so this is optimum pH for the enzyme, for this particular enzyme. Okay, this is pH 7 for this enzyme, optimum pH. This is how inorganic catalysts are different from biocatalysts. Biocatalyst means enzymes. Okay, so how inorganic catalysts are different from these enzymes? Inorganic catalysts work at high temperature and pressure, but enzymes get damaged at high temperature. Okay, so this is the difference. Inorganic catalyst for increasing the rate of reaction work at high temperature, because enzymes are made up of proteins, so their structure get destroyed at high temperature, usually more than 40 degrees Celsius. But not of all enzymes, okay, because there are some thermophilic organisms also, thermophilic organisms which are found at very high temperature. You know about archaebacteria, we have discussed about archaebacteria also, right? So those organisms are found at very high temperature, are called thermophilic organisms, right? And those thermophilic organisms have enzymes which are stable at high temperature up to 80 to 90 degrees Celsius, you can say, right? So this thing is not true for all enzymes, but most of the enzyme get destroyed at temperature more than 40 degrees Celsius. Next factor affecting enzyme activity is concentration of the substrate. So with the increase in substrate concentration, the velocity of enzyme action rises at first and reaches a maximum velocity, and that maximum velocity is called Vmax. Now this is not exceeded by further rise in concentration, because enzyme molecules are fewer than substrate molecules, that is no free enzyme molecules to bind with additional substrate molecule. You can understand it with the help of this figure. See here, like these are enzymes, all these are enzymes present here. You can count this, these are 5 total enzymes present here, okay. But concentration of substrate is low in starting because only 2 substrates are there. So 3 enzymes are still free. These 2 substrate will get bind with the 2 enzymes, and 3 enzymes will be free. Okay, there is no work for these enzymes. That's why we can say reaction velocity of the reaction is low. Okay, enzyme activity is low at in this case, right? Now if we increase the substrate concentration, these 3 free enzymes will also get occupied, the enzymes, like you can see here. If we are increasing the substrate concentration, then what will happen, these enzymes will also get some work, and rate of reaction will increase. Now what will happen if we further increase the substrate concentration? Because all the enzymes are occupied, so there will be no further increase in the velocity of reaction, right? So here you can say in starting the rate of reaction will increase if we increase the substrate concentration, but after some time, means there will be a point that after which if we further increase the substrate concentration, no free enzyme molecules will be there to bind with the additional substrate molecule, and the rate of reaction will not increase. You can understand it with the help of this graph. Here on this side, this is velocity of reaction, right, which is represented by V, capital V, and this is substrate concentration represented by S, capital S, right? Now this is a graph. When we are increasing the substrate concentration, rate of reaction, means velocity of reaction is increasing, right? If we are increasing the substrate concentration, velocity of reaction is increasing up to this point. After this point, if we further increase the substrate, there will be no effect on the velocity of reaction. Okay, so this graph is different from the graph for the temperature and pH, because what was happening in that case, the rate of further increase in temperature or pH, the rate of reaction was decreasing. Okay, that graph was going like that. One second. So that graph was like this, right? But here this is Vmax, means if we further increase the substrate concentration, there is no impact on velocity of reaction, and this is called Vmax. So this is Vmax here, means maximum velocity. Max is maximum and V is velocity. So this is maximum velocity. Now here you can see this point, where the half of maximum velocity is achieved. This is substrate concentration where the half of maximum velocity is achieved is represented by Km, Michaelis-Menten constant. Km is because it was discovered by a scientist, Michaelis-Menten. So this is Km, the concentration of substrate at which half of maximum velocity of reaction is achieved, and half of maximum velocity is represented by Vmax half. So this is Vmax half here, and this is concentration of substrate where this Vmax half is achieved. So it is represented like this. So this is the graph for concentration of the substrate. Next factor affecting enzyme activity is presence of inhibitors. So binding of specific chemicals, or you can say those chemicals are inhibitor, shuts off the enzyme activity, and this is called inhibition. So if any chemical bind with enzyme and shuts off its activity, that process is called inhibition. The inhibitor closely resemble to the substrate is called competitive inhibitor. So if this chemical means that is inhibitor, if its structure is similar to that of the substrate, then the inhibition is called competitive inhibition, and that chemical is called competitive inhibitor. It competes with the substrate because its structure is similar to that of substrate, so it will compete with substrate for the binding site of the enzyme. As a result, substrate cannot bind and enzyme action declines. Okay, if any inhibitor is competing with the substrate for binding with enzyme, then what will happen? There will be less chances of the substrate to bind with the enzyme, and rate of reaction will decrease. Here you can understand there can be two types of inhibition, like competitive inhibition and non-competitive inhibition. As you can see here, this is one enzyme, this is substrate for this enzyme, and this is inhibitor. So this inhibitor structure is similar to that of substrate. Okay, it is structurally similar to that of substrate. So for the increased rate of reaction, there is need of binding of the substrate with the enzyme. But what happen in the presence of inhibitor? This inhibitor occupy the position on the enzyme. Okay, as you can see here, inhibitor has bind with this enzyme, and that's why the substrate will not be able to bind with this enzyme. So what will happen? Enzyme inhibitor complex will be formed instead of enzyme substrate complex. So rate of reaction will decrease, right? And this type of inhibition is called competitive inhibition because inhibitor is competing with substrate to bind with enzyme, right? Another type of inhibition is also there, that is called non-competitive inhibition, and here you can see this inhibitor. This is present here. This inhibitor is not structurally similar to that of substrate, right? That's why it is not competing with substrate to get bind with enzyme. There will be a different site for that for the binding of this inhibitor with the enzyme. As you can see here, substrate binds here, and this inhibitor can bind here on the enzyme. Okay, but in this case also the rate of reaction will obviously decrease, because in this case also enzyme inhibitor complex is formed, right? So this enzyme inhibitor complex is formed here if this inhibitor binds with enzymes earlier than substrate, and rate of reaction decreases. Now this is one example for competitive inhibition. Malonate is similar to the substrate succinate. Succinate is a substrate and malonate is an inhibitor, and malonate is structurally similar to that of succinate, right? So what happened? This malonate inhibits succinic dehydrogenase in the following reaction. Succinic dehydrogenase is an enzyme. So what is function of this succinic dehydrogenase? It converts succinate into fumarate. So here succinate is substrate for succinic dehydrogenase, and this enzyme is converting this substrate succinate into product fumarate, right? Now what happen when the malonate is present there, then this succinic dehydrogenase get bind with malonate. Okay, this malonate is inhibitor and it compete with succinate to get bind with the succinic dehydrogenase, right? So the rate of reaction get decrease. Okay, if malonate get bind with the succinate dehydrogenase, then obviously fumarate will not be formed, right? So rate of reaction will get decrease, we can see. Competitive inhibitors are used to control bacterial pathogens. So this is one application of competitive inhibitors, you can say, which is useful for us, which is useful for human beings. Okay, these can be used to control bacterial pathogens. Now our next topic is classification and nomenclature of enzymes. So there are 6 major classes of enzymes. Okay, this is called classification of enzyme. These 6 major types of enzymes are there. First is oxidoreductases. These can also be called dehydrogenases. Second type of enzymes are transferases. Third are hydrolases, then lyases, then isomerases, and last ligases. Okay, these different types of enzymes are there. Main 6 types of enzymes are there, and these are names of these 6 classes of enzyme. Okay, that's why it is nomenclature for enzymes. So first, oxidoreductases or dehydrogenases enzyme. How these work? Here you can see one, because these are oxidoreductases, means one molecule will be oxidized here and another will be reduced. Okay, so that's why these enzymes are called oxidoreductases, because these are helping in oxidation and reduction reactions. Okay, so here S is representing substrate. Okay, so there are 2 substrate, one S is reduced and S1 is oxidized. So when the enzyme works here, this reduced substrate will get oxidized and this one will get reduced, right? So these enzymes work like this for the oxidation and reduction reaction. So simply you can say the enzymes which help in oxidation reduction reactions are called oxidoreductases. Then transferases. Here you can see in transferases, if this G group, this is a group, okay, any group can be there. This is attached with this substrate S. So here what is happening? There is transfer of group from this S to this S1, right? So S in the reaction means due to the enzyme action, this G is for the group, any group can be there. So this G will get attached here with this S. Okay, so that's why, because these are transferring the group from one molecule to another molecule. That's why these are transferases, transfer the group. Then hydrolases. Hydrolases simply helps in the addition of water. As you can see here, AB plus water it is any molecule, and here this water molecule will break in the form of H and OH, and here you can see AOH will be formed and BH. Okay, there will be bond between A and B will also get break due to hydrolysis, due to action, due to its combination with water molecule, you can see. Then lyases. Lyases you can see here, like these are here, these X and Y are some groups on these C and C. These are some molecules and these X and Y are groups attached with these. Okay, so these lyases help in removal of these groups by a process other than hydrolysis. Okay, hydrolysis means addition of water, because here the hydrolases are working by addition of water. okay, by hydrolysis you can say. But these liases are different from these because these are removing the group, these X and Y group from these molecules without addition of water, without hydrolysis, right? So here X and Y will be removed and a double bond is formed between these molecules. So C, double bond C will be there. Then isomerases, next class of enzyme. Isomerases catalyze interconversion of optical, geometrical and positional isomers. These help in formation of isomers. Isomers are the you can say the molecules having the same chemical formula but different structure. Okay, simply you can say molecules having the same chemical same formula but different structure. So for that isomerization reaction, these enzymes help. Isomerases, as you can say here, ABC, it can be written as BCA. Okay, so this kind of reactions are called isomerization, and isomerases enzyme helps in that. The next class of enzyme is ligases, and these ligases enzyme catalyze the linking together of two compounds. So here linking of two compounds will be there. So X plus Y, X is a compound and Y is a different compound, and here ligase enzyme help in linking of these X and Y. As you can see here, X, Y will be linked here. With the utilization of energy, this ATP is providing energy here for the linking of these X and Y, and these ligases enzyme will catalyze the reaction. Okay, this ATP, after the ligation, this ATP, because it is providing energy, so it will convert into ADP plus PI when it provide energy. Okay, now let's understand oxidoreductases. These are also called dehydrogenases. So catalyze oxidoreduction between two substrate, as you can see here. Okay, we have discussed it earlier also. S is reduced and S1 is oxidized. Then transferases catalyze a transfer of a group other than hydrogen. So transferase, what is the function of transferases? Transfer of a group. And which group is transferred here? Any group other than hydrogen, right? So here you can see this group is transferred from S to S1 here. Hydrolases are catalyzing the hydrolysis of ester, ether, peptide, glycosidic, carbon-carbon, carbon halide. Okay, all these phosphate, nitrogen, all these bonds, all these bonds hydrolysis is catalyzed by hydrolases. Then liases, these remove any group by a process other than hydrolysis, leaving double bond. So we have discussed this also. As you can see here, this double bond is formed between C, carbon-carbon. And isomerases catalyze interconversion of optical, geometrical or positional isomers. And you have seen one example also, like ABC can be converted into BCA, right? Then ligases, enzymes link two compounds together. So for example, enzymes which catalyze joining of bonds like carbon oxygen, carbon sulfur, carbon nitrogen, phosphate with oxygen. Okay, so all these bond linking are done by ligases enzymes. So this is all about the classification and nomenclature of enzymes. Our next topic is cofactors. So cofactors are non-protein constituent bound to the enzyme to make the enzyme catalytically active. Okay, without these cofactors, enzymes are not active. These cannot catalyze any reaction. Okay, so enzymes are made up of protein, and these cofactors are non-protein part, which is bound with enzymes to help them. Simply we can say, okay, these are non-protein part of enzyme. Cofactors are non-proteinaceous part of enzyme which help the enzymes to catalyze the reaction. Now let's see what is apoenzyme. Apoenzyme is protein portion of the enzyme, because the complete enzyme we will say the enzyme with non-proteinaceous part. Okay, so apoenzyme is protein portion of the enzyme, and when this apoenzyme, as you can see here, this is an apoenzyme, okay, the protein portion of the enzyme, and when it get bound with this cofactor, what is this cofactor? This is non-protein part of the enzyme. So when cofactor bound with apoenzyme, the complete structure is called a holoenzyme, and this holoenzyme is catalytically active. It can catalyze a reaction. Got it? So cofactor plus apoenzyme is called holoenzyme. Apoenzyme is inactive. It get activate only when it get bound with cofactor, right? So when the cofactor is removed from the enzyme, its catalytic activity is lost. Now these are types of cofactor: prosthetic group, coenzymes, and metal ions. So let's see what are prosthetic group. These are organic, or prosthetic group are organic in nature, and these are tightly bound to apoenzyme, means bonds will be strong bonds. So these are tightly bound to apoenzyme is proteinaceous part of the enzyme. And prosthetic group are cofactor, means non-proteinaceous part of the enzyme, right? So these tightly bound to the apoenzyme, and examples of prosthetic group are like heme in peroxidase. Heme is a prosthetic group. As you can see here, the structure, this heme is prosthetic group. So in peroxidase and catalase, they catalyze breakdown of H2O2, means peroxidase, to water and oxygen, right? So peroxidase and catalase. In both these, heme is a prosthetic group. Then next type of cofactor is coenzymes. Coenzymes are also organic in nature, like prosthetic group, and their binding is transient binding to apoenzyme. Transient binding means they get bound to that enzyme only at the time of catalyzing reaction. Okay, after the reaction will get complete, these will get detached from the apoenzyme. Okay, that's why this binding is called transient binding, means these get bound with the apoenzyme only at the time of catalyzing the reaction. So there are many coenzymes contain vitamins. Okay, means most of the many coenzymes are made up of vitamins. For example, NAD, nicotine amide dinucleotide, okay, and NADP, nicotine amide dinucleotide phosphate. Both these contain niacin. NAD and NADP, these are coenzymes, okay, and both these contain niacin. What is this niacin here? This is a vitamin, okay. So these coenzymes have vitamin. That's why we are saying many coenzymes contain vitamins, right? So you can see here, this is structure for nicotinic acid, which contains niacin. This is nicotine amide, means niacin vitamin is present here in it. Okay, so these NAD and NADP are examples for coenzymes. Now next type of cofactor is metal ions, and these metal ions are usually inorganic in nature. Okay, so these are different from prosthetic group and the coenzymes. Both were organic in nature, but metal ions are inorganic in nature. They form coordination bonds with side chains at active site. Side chains at active site means of the apoenzyme, okay, active sites of the apoenzyme with their side chains, and one or more coordination bond with substrate also. Okay, so this is also a point of difference of these metal ions from the prosthetic group and the coenzymes, because these are making coordination bond with substrate also, but the prosthetic group and the coenzymes, those were attached only with the apoenzyme, only with the proteinaceous part of the enzyme, but these are binding with substrate also. Okay, and how these are binding with the enzyme and substrate? with both these are making coordination bonds. Got it? Now these are some examples of metal ions. So one example is given here, Zn. Zn is a cofactor of carboxypeptidase. Carboxypeptidase is an enzyme, holoenzyme you can say, when it get bound with Zn. Zn is a cofactor for it. So different metal ions like manganese, okay, and zinc, these can act as iron for some, can act as cofactors. This is carboxypeptidase enzyme for which this zinc act as a cofactor. So this chapter is complete now, and your homework for today is to do the NCERT question number 15 and to differentiate prosthetic group and coenzyme. Then tomorrow assignment of this chapter will be uploaded on EdQuark. You need to do that assignment also. Now let's discuss the homework solution of previous lecture, and this is NCERT question that find out and make a list of proteins used as therapeutic agents. Find other applications of protein also, for example in cosmetics. So these are the names of some proteins which are used as medicine, or which are used as therapeutic agent. Okay, so insulin, you know, for regulating the blood glucose level, it is used. So insulin is a therapeutic agent. Oxytocin is a hormone, so it also plays a role as therapeutic agent for at the time of delivery of baby. Immunoglobulin, these are antibodies. Then antidiuretic hormone, that is ADH, it also helpful in kidney problems. Okay, and thrombin, blood clotting agent. Fibrinogen is also a blood clotting agent. Then renin and streptokinase, this is clot buster, means if any clot is formed inside the arteries and veins. So it all these are therapeutic agents. These are used as medicine, you can say. Then some other applications of protein, because here we need to find some other applications of protein. So proteins are used as artificial sweeteners. Proteins are used as dietary supplements to maintain health. Now this is question number 12 of NCERT, that what are gums made of, and is Fevicol different from these gums? So the answer is gums are heteropolysaccharides. Heteropolysaccharides means these are formed by different monosaccharide units. Okay, hetero means different monosaccharide units will be there. So different monosaccharide units associated by glycosidic bond. As you know, how the polysaccharide is formed by glycosidic bonds between monosaccharide unit. Okay, so gums are heteropolysaccharide. On the other hand, Fevicol is different from gums as it is made up of synthetic polymers. Okay, it is not a natural heteropolysaccharide, it is made up of synthetic polymers, so it is different from gums.